So let's see the second protection issue of standalone microgrid, the protection of microsources. The following issues should be considered while designing a reliable microsource protection scheme. The first one, acceptable voltage and frequency protection tolerances in standalone mode. That is, fixing frequency and voltage protection tolerances for a standalone microgrid. And second one, need for anti-aliasing protection. That is, we need to evaluate the requirement for anti-aliasing protection of distributed energy resources. If such protection needed, the way to override or disable during standalone mode of operation of microgrid. And third one, investigate whether the existing anti-aliasing methods might lead to frequency or voltage instability if employed in standalone microgrid. And the last one, we need to evaluate the requirements for under frequency load shedding scheme for microgrid and coordinate it with the same scheme of utility. So broadening the tolerance range, that is of frequency and voltage windows, is advantageous for standalone microgrids. But before implementing the change, its effects on the safety of existing equipment must be studied carefully. And this change must be done only through the intelligent microgrid central controller. So islanding, it refers to the condition of ditches that continues to feed the circuit with power even after the power from utility grid has been cut off, and it may pose dangerous threat to utility workers because they may not be realized that circuit is still live while they do try to attempt to work on that line. And the distributed generators, they must detect this islanding and they should immediately stop feeding the utility lines with power, and that's called anti-islanding. So a grid-tied solar power system, it's required to have a grid-tied inverter with this anti-islanding function, and they should sense whenever the power outage occur and they should shut itself off. So generally it is desirable to deactivate this anti-islanding protection scheme for the microsources, and the anti-islanding controls on their Poltronic interfaces unless the ratio of this generation to microsource generation is too high. And this microgrid, it might be left with uncontrolled islands if these controls are not deactivated. So as the majority of this anti-aliasing schemes cause very fast tripping, it is very essential to deactivate instantly on detection of forming an isolated microgrid. And by transmitting a blocking signal from microgrid central controller is the most reliable way for deactivating the anti-aliasing trip signal. So coming to the load shedding and demand side management. So for handling contingencies like equipment failures or fault, this power utility usually assign a group of loads as non-critical loads, and they do disconnect them to avoid any drop in system frequency and voltage. And this is carried out through demand side management and load shedding scheme. They are designed to stabilize the system frequency and voltage during disturbances. And to have flexibility in switching, more favorable rates are provided as incentives by utilities to non-critical consumers, and an what we can say an agreement it is made between the consumer and the utility regarding the load shedding. So to re-establish the supply demand balance by this demand side management, the utilities trip these loads quickly and selectively through proper load shedding systems. And the load shedding schemes with under frequency relays are employed by utilities to disconnect the non-critical loads, and they re-establish the system frequency with reduced generation. Let's see the third protection issue of standalone microgrid, that is National Electric Code requirements for distribution transformer protection. So prior to designing protection scheme for this medium voltage or low voltage distribution transformer, careful assessment must be carried out to check whether this overcurrent protection requirement of the NEC transformer must suit with much lower fault current capacity microgrid networks. about 600% of the transformer rating, that is article 450 of the NEC. It can be set as overcurrent protection for consumer, and additionally this most NEC recommendations are based on the assumption that the ratio of this short circuit to maximum load current would be greater than 10, and but due to the low fault current levels of the standalone microgrid, the rating and location of transformers protection system for transformer with high setting may not pick up faults at all, and they may leave them almost unprotected against short circuits. So the last one is neutral grounding requirements. So safety under the standalone and grid connected mode of operation, installation integrity and effective fault protection for microgrids are guaranteed by this neutral grounding system. So what is the purpose of neutral grounding a transformer? So by neutral grounding, it can provide a really low impedance path to the ground, thereby maintaining the system neutral at or near ground potential, and we can limit the magnitude of transient overall voltages by this neutral grounding, especially when restriking down faults occur. So the following issues must be taken into account while designing and developing grounding system for microgrids. So the main method to provide an effectual neutral grounding for this medium voltage system in standalone when this MV or LV transformer is delta star connected, and method to provide an effectual neutral grounding for LV distribution network system in standalone mode when this MV or LV distribution transformer is star grounded or star grounded connection, and method to maintain compatibility within the microgrid and between the utility feeder supplying microgrid and grounding of the MV system, and the last one, whether the grounding system fulfills the grounding necessities of the existing distributed energy resources installations. Integration of DG affects the overall performance of utility grid in many ways and are explained below. First one, the impact on power quality and reliability, impact on electricity market, impact on environment, impact on distribution system, and last, impact on communication standards and protocols. So let's see one by one. So the first one is impact on power quality and reliability. So power quality and reliability improvements are two main impacts of DG integration in the form of microgrid through active distribution network. For power quality and reliability improvements, the following requirements are essential. The first one, quick response. The load requires quick response of storage devices to safeguard from momentary voltage fluctuations. And second one is synchronization. So for smooth control in parallel, synchronization must be there. Then comes clean power. We know the storage power must be converted into clean power. Then comes smooth transfer. Smooth and seamless transfer to alternate power source must be possible. Then proper isolation in case of any contingencies. This integrated distributed generation, that is microgrid, must be well organized for a quick isolation from utility. Then sufficient storage capability. The quantity of storage energy must be adequate to ride through any outage until restoring this power, primary or secondary power. Then comes dispatch ability. So DGs through microgrid must be able of supplying power to varying local loads and supply to priority loads. So DGs through microgrid must be able to supply clean source of power to the priority loads under any case of contingencies. Then comes efficiency. It must operate at high efficiency. And comes the last one, the emission. DGs through microgrid must be able to reduce emissions drastically to minimize the environment impacts. So now let's see the impact of DG integration on electricity markets. So we know the cost of power and auxiliary services must vary in such a way that it will reflect the existing system conditions. So when the system is less stressed, the price must go down and vice versa. So Hence, the primary factor that controlling the power generation must be the market prices, while other technical factors must be of a secondary importance. So, the DG integration profitability from markets depends entirely on the response of microgrid to the price signals. And the microgrid CC, central controller, it is programmed to control heat and electricity generation according to the market price signals. The market system must be more flexible by permitting the expansion of generation, storage, and more control for loads. And this will also help the bidders to make a decision about their involvement by just studying the market forces from time to time. And this also helps the markets to optimize the power system and the individual bidders commercial ventures, minimizing the central planning and control. And Microsoft's owners use commercial softwares to carry out detailed economic assessments, and these tools helps them to find out the wholesale spot market prices based off real-time price data or the rate based on hourly deployment schedule. And the following are the economic considerations for this modeling. For predicting the demand data, price containing where the data is used, cost of standby charges, then avoiding thermal energy price, demand charges and emissions, then thermal energy utilization, then evaluation of NOx, nitrogen oxide, carbon monoxide, and ammonia emissions with the cost involved in emission controlling, then daily demand of clear thermal energy in blocks for time, and the last one, the turbine performs under site specific conditions. So these are some of the economic consideration for this modeling. So let's see the impact of DG integration on environment. The emission of greenhouse gases and particulates can be effectively reduced if we make use of the CHP systems and low carbon generators. And usually this nitrogen oxide gases, they are produced in large quantities by these highway vehicles or power stations or reciprocating engines and large gas turbines. And DGs like fuel cells, micro turbines, they have much lower nitrogen oxide emission because they have low combustion temperatures, while DGs like solar PVs and small hydro, they doesn't emit nitrogen oxide at all. So in applications as microsources will reduce nitrogen carbon compounds, and emission from a micro turbine, they mainly depends on its power output or control of combustion process and operating temperature. Hence the emissions can be minimized through precise and rapid control of combustion process. And the CC, central controller, must be programmed to take decisions on the basis of lowest net emissions. And by building a reasonable and fair emission tariff in market system, especially using market responsive central controllers, the emission of greenhouses gases and particulates can be reduced by microgrids. Coming to the impact of DG on distribution system. So one of the most important aspects of integration of DGs is their capability to provide auxiliary services to improve reliability of the existing distribution system. And unlike the traditional power stations, DGs are situated very close to pocket loads. So this makes them more appropriate for supplying the auxiliary services than the traditional power stations. And it is very difficult for centralized power stations to monitor and address the disturbances occurring in the load centers located quite far away. So coming to the last impact, the impact of distributed generation on communication standards and protocols. So universally compatible and well-structured communication procedures, they are very essential for coordinating the DG operation and microgrid during both modes, that is grid connected and standalone modes. And these procedures, they must follow all the obligations and bindings imposed by the authority, power supply authority and ISO. And in general we can say the computerized control system, they require as structured and strictly defined procedures for communication, but this might be vary from authority or from application to application. So that is the reason why the procedures employed in any local generators or ISOs, they all are different. So they cannot provide any connectivity among their components. Hence, a translation device or as a transfer service for different communication methods would be provided while we develop this CC key. So this translation, that is translations, they are executed by a device called gateway. So what's the role of gateway? The key role of the gateway is to provide the essential connectivity among various devices by routing, formatting, signaling functions, and message translating. However, during information exchange, these gateways may also bring in some unwarranted time delays and other issues in communication process. Several problems are highlighted here. So the first one, the gateways, they usually designed to pass only restricted amount of some specific data. So normally they store a local copy of the POS device's data while passing through it. So when the data is requested next time, the response of gateway is prepared based on the stored local copy and not based on the current data. So for large complicated system, it might result in supplying old and misleading data. That's an important problem for this gateways. And here we know different tools are there to observe and interpret the protocols on both sides of the gateway. So this makes the problem solving more tedious process. Then coming to the last one, time delays, they are introduced mainly due to the processing time needed for translation, and content networks may have different rules for gaining access to media and different transmission speeds. So these are some of the problems of communication standards and protocols in DG.